Hey everyone, Matt Montanez here, and today I'm going through this record called HeadGame by blckatom. Super dope record. I showed it on my last video. We broke down a new addition to my template. Was just talking about how I added this new thing to my template that really brings tracks to life, etc., etc. Super dope. You can check that out. There will be, I don't know, I'll probably put a box somewhere in the window so you can check that out. There'll be a link somewhere, or you can just go back to the live videos. Like I explained in the last video, that I'm going to start doing these live videos. It just helps me to get more videos done versus trying to do recording, editing, and then posting. I just don't have the time to edit, to be 100% honest with you. But I got a whole little live setup going now where I can do cool things like this, just zooming in and moving around my screen so you could really see my plugins. Nothing fancy, just something to get things going, a little more interactive and things to work. I just hope this really benefits and works out. I'm going to try to do more videos like this, probably once a week or something, just to get things going. And really just share my information, my knowledge, and things that I know or learned throughout all these years of working as an engineer. So to get started, I'm gonna break this record down. I had a few emails talking about or asking me like, how did I mix this record? What were the techniques I did? And it's really because I kind of showed my template again, and they're like, wow, it's a cool template. Can I get your template? Or what is your template? So just because it's things like that, it's like, all right, let's just show off what I did on this record, really starting from the beginning and see how that works out. So the first thing I do is, obviously, when you're going to start a new record, you come in and you import all the tracks, which it's 26 tracks was this song. Looks like we had 20 instruments, and then the rest were vocals, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know why I couldn't do that math, but 6 were there as vocals. So we could zoom in here on the left so you can just see a little bit. And you can see on the side here all these plugins. It's really not a lot of plugins I use. So on all the actual tracks themselves, there's really no plugins on them. It's really just going through my routing, which inputs, outputs, I/O. So inputs left, outputs right hand side here, and then we go to the vocals, which is the same thing, just a few plugins. Yeah, Ernie, on this record, actually, I did master it in the actual session. It's down here. Here's the master, and I went through this for my mastering chain. I didn't. Usually I do bounce it out, or I sent it to my print track, which is right here. And this one I didn't do that. I just mastered it right in the session. So for this record, I did master in the session, and it's really because I didn't have all the power before. I was working on a MacBook Pro. Now I'm on a Windows PC. I built this PC myself, so now I have the power to master inside the session. Compare reference from Spotify as you're mixing up. What do you use to meter live? Yeah, I use the LUFS for my metering. It's right here. I use this plugin. This is the plugin I use. This is the one I like. I also have this plugin here, but it's not really something I use too much, but it does have LUFS also. But I did use it at a point a lot, and it was because the older version, this one you can do it too, but you can go into the music streaming references, also standard references, target, and I would use the target stuff, but I didn't really care for it, so I started using this plugin more. And I like this one, and really because it shows the under and over samples. But yeah, I'll get to that when I get to the mastering part. But yeah, I can definitely pull up a Spotify track and show you how I use it as a reference. That's fine. I'll get to that point probably near the end of this whole stream live thing here. But so just to break it down, to continue going from the beginning, like I said, I'm going to start from the beginning, go to the end, really my mindset and when I'm mixing. There's just a few plugins here on these vocals, and then it goes to the outputs into these EQs. These plugins are all the same thing. Well, they're not the same settings, but it's all the same plugin. It's the C6, and this is the sidechain version. It's my favorite one. What's up, Tori? Nice to see you in the stream, bro. We definitely got to get a stream together and, you know, do our thing just to do a live stream together, talk music, chop it up, show some tips and tricks. Ernie, for what I try to hit, honestly, I don't hit negative 14 or 12. I actually go further than that. This one is around negative 9. Right here it shows 10, but let's go to the loudest part, and I'll just play it real quick so you can see it. Let's see. So we're going to go here. Here's a bunch of instruments. Let's go to this part here at the end, and you can see that what the meter shows. Let me hit the bullseye. So as you can see, it's negative 8, and that's where it's peaking at the very, very top. But I do go around negative 9 for my LUFS, and that's because that's what everybody else is doing, to be honest. I know Spotify is going to crush it, Apple Music is going to crush it, but everybody's doing negative 9, especially for radio or video games or movies or wherever else they're going to put it at. So I always just hit negative 9. I would say negative 12 to negative 9, between that area is a good safe place. So back to the template. So once I bring in and I import all the tracks, I do import my template, and it starts here at number 27. It's bass. This is the reference track. Let me just move that out the way. We got bass. This I brought in for this session just because I wanted to do a width thing, which I'll explain that once I get there. But it starts at bass, comes all the way down this way to background vocals width, and that's my template. Every time I load my template, it brings this in. Audio on my end sounds like it's chopping up. Okay, the audio is chopping up. Let's see if I can fix that real quick, guys. I'm trying something new here. Let's see if I can do this. WDM, Cabal put. Let's try. Thanks for telling me, man. Let's see if that's gonna work there. Let's do a restart engine there, and I'm gonna play it real quick. Tell me if it's still acting up. It's so damn good. It's funny though, because I tested this whole recording thing before and it chopped up. I switched settings, it worked, and now it's chopping up again. So it's weird, man. I'm trying to follow the negative 14. Yeah, negative 14 is a good rule. It really definitely is negative 14, just because that's where you should be, so it doesn't get crushed in Spotify, Apple Music, or well, not Tidal, but SoundCloud and things like that. But you want to make it comparable. You don't want to be the quietest guy. Like I used to follow that too, negative 14, but when I load up records I've done on Spotify, they were quieter than other records and it sucked. Oh, thanks guys for checking that for me. So let's move on. So that's my template, starting from bass all the way down to background vocals width. I'll definitely go through the template right now so you guys can check it. So on my template, these are all the inserts. These two sides here, you get your A through E, F through J. On my template, it's all the routing I do from bass all the way down to background vocals. I think it's 12. I think I kind of stick to, no, it's not 12. I'm lying to you guys. But it goes to basically 32 channels because they're all stereo. This is why I use the plugin Alliance version. It's just because it sounds incredible for one, but it does the THD, the total harmonic distortion, and it sounds different between each channel. So I start with bass and I load that bad boy up, and it's 1 and 2 stereo channel, kicks 3 and 4, and so on, all the way down to background vocals. That sucks, Tori, but man, I've been trying to catch your stream. I'll be jumping in on more and more often, but you had a late one the other day, bro, so I couldn't jump in. I was going to bed. But I'll definitely catch it and try to tell you that if your streams, the audio's messed up. But so I throw this on every single track on these, whatever, what is it, 16, I guess? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Yeah, 16 tracks in stereo, so it goes to 32. I just imagine that I have a 32 channel console in front of me, and that's the way it works. From there, the next step I do in my whole template is I throw these sends out, and each send is actually shooting a little bit over into the next channel. So for bass, it's shooting into kicks, -30. For kicks, it's shooting into my snares, -30, and so on. They're all shooting over just a little bit, and it's to try to emulate that whole, oh, we're doing console bleed, where if you're working on a real console, it has bleed into the next channel. That's what I'm doing here, or at least trying to emulate it, because Pro Tools doesn't have a standard way of doing that. It's not like Studio One, which is incredible. They have the CTC, which actually does that. So I'm kind of trying to emulate that here in Pro Tools, and it does something that I do like, the sound. It really brings things to life. So I'm gonna mute those out real quick so you can actually hear it and see what you guys think. So I select those, I mute those out, and I'm just gonna play a little snippet here at the beginning of the record. Let's just do this section here. It's on my mind, gotta run it all the time. Baby, lose my cool, no, I got it, something good. It's on my mind, gotta run it all the time. Baby, lose my cool, no, I got it, something good. And it's super subtle. I'm not gonna lie, that whole effect there is super subtle. It works for me though. Honestly, I really hear it mostly when I'm working in my monitors. If I'm on headphones, I can barely hear it, but it's really when I'm in my monitors. I'm running the Yamaha NS10s, and I mix on them kind of quiet, not really too big or nothing. So that's what that effect's doing, that send, so I just throw it at the end. For my other sends, it's kind of like shooting them through chains that I used to use. This one's going to a Distressor Emulator, which is here, and it's just adding punch. That's the kicks and snares, usually hit the same things. There's one called Drums Dirt and DBX 160. If I don't like the Distressor, I'll go into the DBX 160. If I don't like that, I'll go into the Drums Dirt, which is here. The Drums Dirt is actually just a trick or a chain that I pulled from the Andrew Sheps, one of his templates. And I really liked it. It just adds some distortion and does some cool stuff. Okay, so the width on the clap and snap. So that's kind of what I was explaining earlier. I use this plugin. This is, I actually have a whole tutorial on how to use this plugin here. It's this bad boy, the Master Desk. Don't use it for mastering. It sucks for mastering. It is the worst plugin ever for mastering. Well, probably not the worst ever for mastering. It just sucks for mastering. But this is what I'm using, and I tried it out when I mixed Looking for Love. It's the theme song for Tyler Perry's Sisters, and I actually explain it showing that record in the tutorial. But this is the settings I used for that record, or close to the settings. Let me copy these. So Ryder Looking for Love breakbeat. I used it for the breakbeat because I needed to add a width for that section, and nothing was cutting it. Not the S1, not the ozone width, not the doubler, nothing. I brought them, so it's a little different. Brought in this bad boy, and this was the settings I ended up falling in love with. The mids, the treble, the presence, and the stereo enhance is really the glory on making it super wide, or at least enough width where it doesn't sound artificial. It sounds real, like it's supposed to be there. So for this one, I use the same settings, but as you can see, I brought back some mids, and I just brought the volume down so it doesn't slap weird. Let me play it so then you can see where this stupid needle's going. Well, it's not a stupid needle, it's actually very important, but yeah, the needle. Sorry if you guys couldn't see that plugin, so let me zoom around. I'm still getting used to the whole live streaming thing, but here we go. I'm gonna play it so you can see the needle on what it's doing. It's on my mind, gotta run it all the time. Baby, lose my cool, no, I got it, something. So like I was saying, I don't know if my microphone was off, but this is how I got my width, is with this plugin. I fell in love with it, like I said, when I mixed Tyler Perry's Sisters record. Tyler Perry's theme song for Sisters called Looking for Love. These were the two settings. And let me just copy those again. and just show you. So I'm going to show you actually with it on the settings I found love with, and you'll hear that it has a little too much mids, and the volume's just way too much. So then I just brought those two down and left everything else the same, and it sounds dope.
It's on my mind, got it running all the time. Baby, lose my cool, know I got it something good. It's on my mind, got it running all the time. Baby, lose my cool.
So it just really just calmed it down just a hair, and it made it really, really dope on what it does. So this is the golden plugin I say use for any kind of break beats, any kind of drum loops, 2 tracks. If all your drums are together, use this bad boy. Forget any kind of other EQs, forget any kind of other compressors or whatever. Just use this bad boy. The comp mix, so it's doing the whole parallel compression. You can use the de-esser. I did just to calm those hi-hats and things like that, or high end of the snares. And then it's the stereo enhance. That's the golden thing that really, really makes it shine. I love the compressor too. Like I said, if you really want to dial in on this plugin, know how to use it, you can check out my tutorial on it. It's how to use Plugin Alliance Master Desk, I think it's called, the video. And it's super dope. I explain every single knob on it, but this is the one on how I got the width on the drums. And the way I did it on this record, I came here, and as you can see, I routed all my drums, which is toms, snares, kicks, and the bass, into the drums auxiliary or effects tracks, depending what you're using. And then I just added it on an insert. Then that went to my mix bus. My mix bus is down here. For my mix bus, I always just go into this bad boy here, which is the Plugin Alliance bus compressor. It's just an SSL, and it sounds incredible. So that's how I got the width and snaps and everything to just shine really, really dope. To go back, hey, thank you, Tori. I really appreciate it, man. You're dope, bro. That's all I could really say. But yeah, I can't wait till we do our stream. I'm gonna keep going through this record. So when I imported everything, I route everything. So I go through my bass, send it to my bass, kicks, send them to kicks, all the snares and claps, I send them to all snares. Toms, percussion goes to all percussion. As you can see, there's a lot of percussion here. It's really all these tracks, all those there, and it all goes out to my percussion, guitars, and then keys, synths, pads, and then vocals. I'll get to the vocals. So they all go into these tracks, and it's really just to route everything and just pretend I'm on a 32 channel mixing console, and I mix that way. So when I do that, that's when I have less plugins here. The reason why I do that is because when I do that, it's like this side where all these plugins are on the actual channels themselves, it's more to me like fixing, doctoring things up. It's cleaning things if there's any nuances or like weird hisses or clicks or funny stuff. This is where I do that at. I fix everything. I bring in a stock EQ, add it in, or for example, like my vocals, you'll see I did the C6 sidechain. Then I tighten things up here. That's what I do here. When I come out here, this is where I'm coloring everything, making things sound nice, adding a little slap with the compressor versus actually, oops, I have my window all funny there. Let me bring in another window because that one's all jacked up. Let me get a small window here. Oh, I can't grab my window no more. Ha. Let's see if I can move that out the way. I think I threw it so funny. There it is. Let's grab that one, move it. Let's go here. Sorry guys, I messed up here. I'm gonna have to reload this session. Oh, there we go. So sorry about that. I kind of messed up, but so this is where I color everything, and as you can see, this is where a majority of my EQ is actually going to happen and do things. I got if I bring this here so you can see it, this is where all the coloring and the shape of my final vocals is going to sound like. So like here, I felt like there was just way too much freaking mids on these lead vocals. I pulled it all out, or a lot of it out. It's almost 7 dB. Same thing here. I pulled out almost 4.5 dB at 456 hertz. So this is where all the coloring stuff's really going to take place here in my EQing, compression, and things like that. But it doesn't do much, as you can tell. I don't have like 1,000 plugins causing all this processing. You never want to do that. Same here, like there's not a lot of processing going on. For an LA2A, I have the LA2A and then the CLA vocals. This one's just LA2A. API is literally just the API. This one has a little effect here for background vocals, but nothing really crazy going on. So all this stuff here is, like I said, it's just cleanup, fixing things, nuances, things that you don't like that's really destroying the vocal, making things sound gross. When you come back to, let's say, the vocals, this is where I can show you that I'm actually doing things. And my vocals is like this. How I do my vocals is I move the leads, always go through my LA2A. Always, no matter what. Well, 99.9% of the time it goes through my LA2A. Because if it's really good compressed, there's no reason to go through the LA2A. I'll just put it through the lead vocals, go through the mix bus. But 99.9% time, I go through my LA2A, which is here. And the setting always stays the same. I never touch it. And then I go right into the CLA vocals here. And this is my settings for the CLA vocals. You could write that down. You can copy it. Basically, I go on lower, 0, push, 0. These are off. My stereo is -3.8. Sometimes I go to -1.6, but it's usually at -3.8. And then I have top, and that's at 1.5. That's my settings. They always stay like that. The only thing I adjust is depending on the vocal that I'm using, I'll bring down the input and then I'll add some output. I have an entire video on how to use the CLA vocals plugin. You can check that out, but it always goes through here if I'm going through my LA2A. And this really just gives it that whole pop sound, which is super dope. The good bright vocals, punchy vocals. So actually I'll play it right now. I'll play it and I'll just kick off this one plugin and you'll see that it sounds a lot different. And it's like, oh dang, that plugin's really doing a lot of the work. And as you can see, it's not really doing anything at all. Like everything's at 0, but it's just, you have to know how to use the plugin. So let me play it and then I'll bypass it.
It's on my mind, gotta run it all the time. Baby, lose my cool, no, I got it, something good. It's on my mind, gotta run it all the time. Baby, lose my cool, no, I got it, something good.
As you can see, that punchiness is just gone, and then the brightness, which is that pop sound, is just gone too, and that's really from the top in there. The punchiness is coming from the push. The lower is adding a little body to it. Even though it's at 0, it's still adding a little body to it. Check out the tutorial and you can figure out why it does it. And then stereo, it's adding a little bit, a tiny bit of width, which the vocal obviously needs. Even though it's layered, it has a main vocal and then this high vocal with it. So that's where my lead vocals go. And then my backgrounds and harmonies, I always just separate it. Usually backgrounds are backgrounds and harmonies are, well, harmonies. So I throw ad-libs and layers where if it's the same note as the lead, like just the left and right, that's all just going into the backgrounds. And then harmonies are always harmonies. If it's a different note, then it's going to my harmonies channel, which is here, harmonies and backgrounds. And then they go through these sends, which is 1176 parallel compression. This one's the Aphex, so it's adding a little bright top end. It's going to my reverb. This one says Reverb, but it's actually touching the Valhalla. Valhalla is my new favorite reverb. I'm never using Reverb anymore, and I don't use this bad boy, the Abbey Road plates. I just use Valhalla pretty much for every mix. It's incredible. That's what I recommend. This one here is a spreader. I'm not using it. I rarely use it. It's really cool effect. But I don't use it much. My H delay, I have it usually all the time on for harmonies and backgrounds or just harmonies. And as you can see, it's rarely on my lead unless I'm doing some trigger effects, which I'm not. delays, and then it goes into Little Altar Boy, which in case I have to create harmonies. And then of course, then it's the last one shooting over as a little bleed. And these are all the same, as you can tell. I keep them all in the same slots. That's how that works. And then all those tracks go into my mix bus, which I kind of explained it. It's this. And then my mix bus is, I don't know what this is for. Oh, yeah. So I was using this EQ when I was mixing on headphones. That's the AKG's K240s, which are these bad boys here. When I'm mixing with those ones, I slap this thing on because it lacks like incredible amount of low end bass. And to my ear, it lacks this one frequency here, which is 17 Hertz. I really shoot it up just so I can make sure I'm calming it down, and then I pull out some of that high end. So I use that. I always slap this on just to do some kind of double checking type of stuff, but that's what that's for. And then I have a plug in here just to throw things in mono if I want to mix in mono for a little time being there. Then, of course, you know from my, oops, I don't even know if you guys seen that plugin. I'm sorry. I'm still getting used to all this. Yeah, that's good enough. Let me scoot back here. Let me push myself back. Then I'm going into my new edition, which is the tape emulation. It would be great if you went back on IG. Yeah, man, I actually got off all social media. I haven't been bothering with social media. I just had to. I'm just a lot happier without being social media, just mindlessly scrolling and liking pictures and posts and stuff. I really didn't need it. I'm just too busy to be on that. So I'm doing all this cool shit now. But yeah, if you ever need me, you can shoot me an email or whatever, or shoot me a text. But yeah, my new addition is this tape emulation, which you seen in my last video, and I used the Kramer tape. I compared why I went with the Kramer tape. That goes into my master bus, which is here, and then I mastered it right into this track. This plus symbol, you're probably wondering what this plus symbol is for on this one track here. So in Pro Tools, you can do a mult out. I really don't know how to do it in other DAWs. I know you can do sends, but this could be a mult out, so you can get multiple outputs per track. So if you look here, I'm sending one into, what the hell am I sending this at? I have no idea where I'm sending this. Let me go down into my print track. So it's going to print, and then I'm doing my output into my master, so I can hear my master. It's going to print, and I can print it and listen at the same time, or whatever I want to do. It can go to one track and come out another track and things like that. So that's what that's for. So it's going into print and master at the same exact time. You can do a lot of stuff with mult out. That's what I'm using that for. And then my master chain. For this record, I did this, which I know you guys are all probably dying on seeing my master chain for this record. I'll zoom in so you can see these settings. Let's actually zoom bottom left so we can see what I'm looking at the same time. So for this record master, I went with the stock EQ. Beautiful EQ. It's one of my favorites. I have no problem with the stock EQ. I know a lot of people don't like it, but for me, it's one of the best EQs out there is this stock one. As you can see, I only added half a dB at 100 Hertz. Not even a dB yet at 488. Nothing at 1, nothing at 2, and then 1.3 at 10, and that's a bell shape, not a shelf. Low end's a shelf. Then I jumped into this bad boy, the Warm 670. I'm a huge fan of the Puig Tech, or not the Puig Tech, the Puig Child. Huge fan of it, the waves, but for some reason, this one just sounded better. I don't know why, it just did. So I went with this. It's pretty much the same settings I used too. For the time constant, I went with the 5 instead of the 6. You can check my tutorial on how to use the 670 compressor. Yeah, I have tutorials on all my favorite plugins, but that's here. My gain reduction, or my inputs, -10, and then my threshold gain reduction is going for 0.7. That's what I used. It's super dope. It sounds great. Then I went into a little bit of width, 1.20, so I went up to 2.20 because I think it starts at 1. Yeah, so I went up 0.2. That's all I did there. And then I went into this bad boy, the Magic. This is the Magic. This magic here is insane. It adds some kind of color, life, and everything to the record. I really just added drive, and I chose the mic. Super dope. And then I went into this one. Oops, let me go back down. Yeah, you can see it. Then I went into this one here, which is the L2. And everybody, if you follow me for a long time, I'm a huge fan of the L2 Waves version. It just sounds incredible. My settings always stay the same, -1.4 and -0.3. I never change those settings on my L2. They always stay the same. If I have to hit it less, I change everything else before it. Never change my L2. It's always that. And then I have my 2 meters, which I don't use this one anymore. It just sits there. And I have this bad boy here. And that's my master chain. It's just incredible. It's super dope for this record. It just works. I usually use a 670 though, but like I said, that's usually the Puig or the Puig Child, which I'll pull it up here and we'll do a side by side so you can see the difference, but they're the same kind of plugin overall. Waves, Puig Child, where are you at? Let's go with Dynamics. That'd be easier to find. Right here is the Puig Child. Same kind of plugin. If I go to my Start, as you can see, it's at 10. The input here's 10. For this one, I always start at 1 and then I move my way back. But usually I just land on 5 or 6. Those are the auto release times. So that's that. And then as you can see, that's 0.8. On this one, I went 0.7. So I just pulled a little off. Like I said, I adjusted for the L2. And then the output for this one is 0.0. This one is at -2, so I just raised that, just adjusted it. And those are the 2 plugins, but they're exactly the same plugins. They work exactly the same. For some reason, that T-Rex just sounded incredible. And that's the chain. So anyway, so that's the entire chain. And now let's get into this whole mixing process, my whole mindset into why I did what the hell I did in this record. So whenever I start off, I always start from left to right. I never jump to vocals first. I never go to drums first. I don't do that stuff. I don't go percussion or guitars. I don't mix that way. I just mix left to right like if I'm reading a book. So I started off pretty much with the piano and the bass with a little bit of the snares. I always just loop this little section and then I hit play. So the first thought I did, it was like, okay, I got piano, I got bass. I really want the piano to sound super dope, but I don't want it to clash with the bass. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna focus on the bass here. So when I work on bass, most of the time, I'm gonna say 90% of the time, I don't touch the EQ for it. There's no reason to. A lot of these producers, especially if they're good and you're working with guys who know what they're doing, they already have that bass sound, especially in this day and age where it's all about 808, it's all about low end. So I rarely touch it. I just added a little spank to it, which is some compression. As you can see, all the EQ 0. And then if you look at my bass, it's just going to the all drums, but that was the width later on at the very end when I decided it all needed more width. But all the EQ 0, and then I just added some compression. So you'll see the meter just kind of bounce up right here at the compression area. Yeah, so it's really just these meters here. Actually, you ain't gonna see any bouncing. I lied to you, but you will hear it. I'm gonna bring this compression down at least to 1, and I'll bring it back to 5, and you'll hear the difference. There there it was, right? It came in a little late, so I guess a little later it actually comes in. The meter bounces a little bit, but as you can tell, it just kind of pushes the bass right on top of things. It moves it a little more up front in your face versus it just sitting in the back. Like if you're at a jazz, well, I guess jazz clubs, they want it in the face too, but like if you're at a live show where the bass guy's just kind of standing in the back, it's like, no, let's bring that bass guy a little more forward where we can see him a little bit. I don't want him by the drums or the drummer back there. Let's bring him up front, kind of closer to the guitarist. So that's what I went with, and that's what the compressor does. It just brings that guy a little forward. So compression, let's just talk a quick tip about compression. So for tuning in, you guys get this nice gem here. Compression, everybody knows compression does quiet things quiet, or quiet things louder, louder things quiet. But you got to think of compression like this. It's not just doing this, squeezing things down. It's putting things in a box. So it's tightening things. It's bringing it down in there, and the width is also going smaller. So when you think of things like that, it's like, okay, it's putting it in its own box, in its own space. So that's when people say you need to keep every element, every sound in its own space. So that's why compression is very, very, very vital in mixing. It keeps things in a box. So if you're panning something left, it's still kind of coming over to the right, especially if you use Logic. I think Logic pans 75 and 75 total. So when you look at it, there's a little bit of bleed going into one side. So it'll bring it in a box and it'll keep it more on that one side. And that's how you have to see it. So bass is kind of getting squished, bringing it forward. And then you got to add your width back if you lost too much width. That's how you have to think of compressions working. So compression's super vital to keep things in its own pocket, in its own space. And that's why I use it a lot for a lot of things. Even like things that you don't think need compression, I always just add just a tiny bit just to keep it in its own pocket. From there, thinking, like I said, left to right, I had the piano, the keys, and it's like, okay, let's get these keys to sit right. And then for the keys, we just came here, which is down here. And I EQ'd the hell out of these things. So we got some top end, we got some mids, and we got some low ends. I brought those low end back because it didn't clash with the bass. So it's like, all right, cool, let's bring this low end forward, and then we'll add our compression and let it sit really nice and neat. Let's highlight this area so you can hear the bass and piano. And those are the keys. The keys weren't nothing like really tough to do, even though it's going out through the whole track, because when he sent me the reference, the keys are kind of in the back already, and it's like, all right, we're going to keep it, keep them down, keep them quiet, keep them just in the background like that, where it's more of creating a sense of space, creating just an extra element, just more of a fill, versus them being up front in your face. So it was a lot easier to just blend in. It was just adding texture to the bass and things like that. Let's see. And then let's move forward here. We got the hook, right?
HeadGame's on my mind. Gotta run it all the time. Baby, lose my cool. No, I got it.
So now we got the drums all coming in, and this is the part where I had to send it over to here, the Distressor B, and it's really to add this punch. So I always just have them sending all the way 0. That's just the way I work. And then I get the Distressor B. Here. Here's a Distressor B. And I always bring it down here. Negative 6.6 is usually my starting point. And if it works, it works. Let me copy my settings. And this is my starting point. It's always here. This is the reason why I use this golden plugin of a distressor instead of any other distressor. Is this one, it will volume adjust automatically with this switch. So I'm going to play it, and I'm going to move my gain so you can see that.
HeadGame's on my mind. Gotta run it all the time. Baby, lose my cool. No, I got.
So that's why I stick to this plugin, just because it does that. So my goal whenever I'm sending things to distressor, or at least the drums, the kick and snare is usually the ones going together, I always try to get around -10, just so I know it's kind of smacking it and limiting it.
HeadGame's on my mind. Gotta run it all the time. Baby, lose my cool. No, I got it.
And that gave me my punch, so the kick and snare comes through really, really dope. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna mute this plugin here. Right there. And then I'll bring it back in.
Headgame's on my mind. Gotta run it all the time. Maybe lose my cool. No, I got it something good.
And so now I'm muting the Distressor now so you can hear that it doesn't have that punch it did have.
Headgame's on my mind. Gotta run it all the time. Maybe lose my cool. No, I got it something good. Headgame's on my mind. Headgame's on my mind. Gotta run it all the time. Maybe.
So now I'm going to unmute the Distressor, which I already did. Actually, I played it a couple times, but I forgot my microphone was muted. But yeah, it adds the punch that you really want in there. And then now let's add that width back in.
Headgame's on my mind. Gotta run it all the time. Maybe lose my cool. No, I got it something good.
And then I know someone's going to ask, what are your settings for the Distressor? So my settings are, well, it doesn't really show, but there's my attack, there's my release. And then on this one, the hot is 6, almost 6. I don't know how to get the values. I think if I move this knob, it'll show me here. Let's try it just so you guys can see that. Yeah. So about 17. I don't know if that's the same for other Distressor plugins. And then this one is, excuse me, about 14. And then the high is 60 almost. So just use your ear, mess around with it. That's how I got the punch for these drums, and the width is really with this bad boy here, this plugin. So moving on, we're working like this right in the hook. So I just keep this hook looped. And I'm gonna be honest, I never really listen to the whole freaking song when I mix until it's near the end and I'm shooting triggers for effects and stuff. So I'm just looping this section. As you can tell, I probably skipped this whole little section here, but I just stay looping this.
Headgame's on my mind. Gotta run it all the time. Maybe lose my cool. No, I got it something.
And then I lower things that need to be lowered. So for example, this synth bell is super freaking loud. If I put it back to 0.
Headgame's on my mind. Gotta run it all the time. Maybe lose my cool. No, I got it something good.
So I lowered that because it was way too loud. And then we come here, which is the glockenspiel, which I brought it down almost 9 dB also. So if I'm gonna put it up, and you'll hear it's way too loud also.
Run it all the time. Maybe lose my cool. No, I got it something good.
And those are just supposed to be texture, just added things. The triangle, same thing. It was way too loud, brought it down 6.4.
Headgame's on my. Headgame's on my.
And there we go, things like that. And then you just kind of adjust your volumes where you need them. That's what I thought. The hats, surprisingly, I brought these hats up. And the reason why I say surprisingly is because I hate hi-hats. That's my biggest thing. I freaking hate hi-hats. I'll always bring them down and tuck them in the back. If you listen to any of my other mixes, you'll be like, oh, damn, this guy really does tuck hi-hats in the back. But this one actually brought it up, so it was kind of cool. So I brought the hi-hats up and then these congos. And it's really because I felt the percussion was really driving this entire record because so much percussion was there. So let's go down a bit and let's just look at some of these EQs and stuff. So you're probably wondering, how did I mix my percussion since it's all as one? Well, the percussion already sounded pretty good together, which is all these tracks. And let's bring in my percussion EQ, which is here. So here's my percussion EQ, and as you can see, everything's 0. I didn't mix them really. All I did was add a little compression, which probably wasn't much at all either, and it sounded good.
Headgame's on my mind, gotta run it all the time. Baby, lose my cool, no, I got it something good.
So as you can see, I'm letting it hit this overload, overloud, overload button, and it just added texture. So I left it to do that, and it just worked out. So that's it. From there, on my percussion, I did throw it through an Aphex Exciter though, and that's what's adding brightness to all the percussion, so they actually sound mixed versus me not doing a darn thing. So I'm gonna let it play. I'll bypass it so you can hear what it does.
Headgame's on my mind, gotta run it all the time. Baby, lose my cool, no, I got it something good. You got headgame's on my mind, gotta run it all the time.
I know, that's the change right there. That's the big change. That's the Aphex Exciter, and that's one of my favorite plugins ever that Waves has done. It's this bad boy here, the Aphex Exciter, and it just sounds great. I'm not doing anything fancy with it. Mix 1, input 0, aux all the way 10. Nothing fancy. It just sounds great, and I just send it over. That's how I get my percussion to really just sit there, right there where it needs to be. From there, keep on moving. We're keep on trucking. So we also had Rhodes in here. So this is the part where I really attacked the keys a lot more, and this is why I EQ'd them the way I EQ'd them, because of the Rhodes.
Headgame's on my mind, gotta run it all the time. Baby, lose my cool, no, I got it something good.
So as you can hear, as soon as I bypassed the EQ, the Rhodes just fell in the back. You can't hear the Rhodes anymore, and we want to hear the Rhodes. That's super, super important that we hear it. So I'm going to let it play, and I'll bypass again, so just keep your ear on the Rhodes.
Headgame's on my mind, gotta run it all the time. Headgame's on my mind, gotta run it all the time. Baby.
So those Rhodes just kind of fall in the back where you can't hear them. So that's why I said, let's add some brightness, let's add some mids, let's even add some low ends in there, just so it doesn't clash with anything, or just so you can hear it. And surprisingly, it just didn't clash with the bass, so it really worked out. That's where I thought there, it's like, all right, this sounds great. So that's pretty much all the instruments. The only thing we had to come in afterwards in the verse was this perk loop, and this is pretty much where I finished up mixing this record. Was when I got here, I checked the perk loop to make sure everything was sitting right, and as you can see, I didn't need to do anything here in the zeros or on those loops. I just had to bring down this, I believe, the volume overall, but I probably already had it down too, if I remember correctly. But they just sounded good. And I'm gonna be honest though, so a lot of things too about this record, why I didn't need to do a lot of things is, for one, not only is blckatom, he's produced this record, and he's super talented, can play multiple instruments and stuff, but he sends me a lot of these tracks before he writes and records to them, and I kind of said, oh, tweak this or this at times. I don't think I did it much on this one because it just sounded great, but me and him go back and forth a little bit with the tracks before he sends me the stems. But he does have a good ear, and he knows where he wants things to sit, so it makes things a lot easier, so you don't have to do so much work during the mix. You just got to make things sound good and color it the right way. So once I finished these perks, which, like I said, I just sent them over, I didn't do anything, they just sounded great. It was time to do the vocals. Vocals, like I said, leads, I put them over to my LA2A, and then he recut a vocal because I sent him a version. He didn't like the way he did it, so he recut a vocal and we plugged it in. And then these are the harmonies and then backgrounds. So let's start off with, let's go with the verse. Just because I didn't really mess with the hook, I always go back to the hook. Because like I said, I go left to right. So, no, actually I did start with the hook on this one. Oh well, let's do the verse. The verse is more, you can hear the verse more and you'll hear the nuances that I heard, and I use this plugin to pull them out. So let's go there. Let's make this thing big. Let's actually zoom in here so you can see this a little better. Let's zoom to the left a bit. There we go. So as you come in on these tracks, I did the gain automation, and the gain automation is to bring down breaths or S's and things like that. I don't really use too much of a de-esser. When I do use the de-esser, I use this plugin for it. And that's always the third one in the chain. And this is the whole Jason Joshua trick. I forget what he calls it. 3 hats, 3 amigos, 3 comps or something, where he does 3 side chains, pretty much 3 of these. Really cool. It just works. So we come in here and I'm going to just solo the vocal. Let's actually mute these, right? Let's move that over. So let's go in here and let's just grab this section here so you can hear what I was listening to.
At the up where you get down, yeah. Make it hurt all over town that I got mine.
Yeah, and that sounds weird. So when I came in, I went with this first one here. It's like, okay, there's something gross in there. I'll play it like this. I'll play it with the music and with the plugins bypass so you can hear it.
At the up where you get down, yeah. Make it hurt all over town that I.
Sorry, I lied. Before I even touch these EQs or compressors, I'm sorry for lying to you guys right now. I feel so bad. I do shoot it through my chain. It does hit the LA2A. It does touch the compressor, and it does touch the CLA vocals. This one, it doesn't touch this yet. So let's bypass the EQ and bypass the dynamics for now. It doesn't touch this yet. This all stays 0, I should say. So how do I do this? Yeah, let's just do that. Let's just do that for now. It's at 0 though, but it goes through the plugin. It does touch it. But I set my reverb first before I even EQ. So I go like this. Let's come here. So I get my reverb and I decide what kind of reverb I want. I hit play. I hit play. I say, okay, the reverb's kind of going. So I do this first. I put it to 0. I pretty much almost max it out so I can hear what the reverb's doing. And I go, okay, I don't like that reverb, or I do like that reverb. And my starting point is usually, I think it's really the big Vox. No, it's just factory default. It's factory default I use. But there's a couple small adjustments that I have in my template, but it's usually the factory default sound. And it's like, okay, I don't like it. I try to picture what I hear because you're putting it in a sense of space, the vocals. So for this one, it's like, okay, it's more darker, it should be nighttime. So For the Night is the preset that I made. These are all my presets. It's the preset I made for the record I did For the Night by Chizzy Stevens. I have that somewhere on my YouTube also. And Dark Concert's a different one. I think it's just bigger. Let's see what those two settings look like. Oh no, they're completely different. So I was like, I'll start with For the Night. It's one of my favorite presets that I've come up with on this. And I'll play it. And the up where you get down, yeah. Make it hurt all over town that I got mine. And the up where you get down, yeah. Make it hurt all over town that I. And I usually just cycle through my presets here. I start with, like, it's dark, I'll go with these ones. If it needs to be a big box verb, I'll go with this one. The big box verb, but I start with my presets and I get somewhere close. So once I get somewhere close, I do my adjustments. And let's see what was close here. It's probably the Justin Vibes one. I'm trying to see which one was actually pretty close, but maybe it was none of them. Yeah, it doesn't look like it was any of them on this one. So I'm not even sure which preset I went with. I must have went through here and chose a preset because I know I don't do that much work with my reverbs. So I find a preset that's pretty close. So me, I usually, like I said, cycle through mine before I do any, but I probably went through here and chose one. And then I always go with the decay. I try to find a good decay time.
And up where you get down and make it hurt all over town that I got mine. And up where you get down and make it hurt.
And for this one, the decay time, I always do it by ear. I don't pull out a calculator or nothing, but for the decay time, I was kind of just wanted to cut right before the next vocal in this section here.
And up where you get down and make it hurt all over.
So right before he says making it, I think that's what he says, I don't remember, making, that's where I want it to cut right before it comes back in. So that's where I landed on 192, I guess.
And up where you get down and make it hurt all over town that I got mine. And up.
So that's usually how I choose my decay time, and then I do the pre-delay all by ear. I just kind of just squirrel and I listen while it's playing.
And up where you get down and make it hurt all over town that I got mine. And up where.
And it's kind of just what sounds good at that time. So that's how I chose the reverb, and then I brought it down -13 because it just sounded like too much reverb overall.
And up where you get down and make it hurt all over town that I got mine. And up.
So there's that. That's what I do first, and then I bring in my little C6 sidechains to really EQ the vocal first before I actually touch the EQ down here. So I come here, I bring it up, and I go with my MMC6 start. Let me copy those settings, and I'll click start. And it pretty much just sets these up the way I like it, and then I kind of just drag to where I want them at in the frequencies. But it sets up the range how I want it, the attack, the release on both sides. And you can see my ranges are different on both ends. And then it fixes my Qs and my thresholds. So then I just drag it over where I need it. So let me paste this back, and I'm gonna play it with it, and then I'll bypass it, see if you can actually hear this setting.
And up where you get down and make it hurt all over town that I got mine. And up where you get down and make it hurt all over town that I.
And what it did is it really cut out a lot of that room noise that was kind of in there, and it just sounded kind of gross. And then I brought in another one, so I just really just alt clicked and brought one over, and then I just readjusted. And that's why if you look, the range and everything, thresholds and stuff pretty much look exactly the same. It's just the frequencies are moved. And same thing here, I'm gonna bypass it so you can hear the difference.
And up where you get down and make it hurt all over town that I got mine. And up where you get down and make it hurt all over town that I.
And again, it's just sounding a lot cleaner, no more of that nastiness in there. And then I brought one more, which is doing the highs. As you can see, everything else stayed the same. It's just moving the frequencies over.
And up where you get down, yeah. Make it hurt all over town that I got mine. And the up when you get down, yeah. Make it hurt all over town that I got.
And it's just this weird hissing sound that was really in front of the vocals on the top end there. From there, I go into my LA2A, which, like I said before, it doesn't get moved. These settings always stay the same, and the needle should always bounce exactly like this.
And the up when you get down, yeah. Make it hurt all over town that I got mine.
And that's for my lead vocal. Remember, that's just lead vocals all going together. And then the CLA vocals, it's right here. I'll pull it off so you can just hear again what it's doing.
And the up when you get down, yeah. Make it hurt all over town that I got mine. And the up when you get down, yeah. Make it hurt all over.
And why not? Let's pull off the LA2A also.
And the up when you get down, yeah. Make it hurt all over town that I got mine. And the up when you get down, yeah. Make it hurt all over.
LA2A is more subtle. It just adds that color that I like, so I just keep it on there. Then I go into the meat of it all, where I sculpt the rest of the sound and just make it sound the way I think it's supposed to sound on the record. So let's zoom out there and let's show you it with everything in.
And the up when you get down, yeah. Make it hurt all over town that I got mine. And the up when you get down, yeah. Make it hurt all over town that.
And it just really finished cleaning up and really gave the sound more of that warmer sound where I felt like it should be at. Then I already explained what these were doing, so we don't really need to get into that. And then I go to harmonies, and for harmonies, so I just loop a section like that. Literally when I mix, I just loop a section like that and just mix it. Then I just jump to the next spot that has a bunch of harmonies, which here happens to be the hook. And we did pretty much the same thing here. This should be the same setting or close to the same. Nope. Just the stock stuff when I bring it in, and then the rest of it changes. And it's just doing the cleanup work, which I'm not really going to play here. It's going to be harder to hear for you guys just wherever you're at on headphones or on your phone. These are all doing the same thing. Just the same notch. That's just cleanup work. Balance it out a little bit here, and then I come down into my harmonies, and this is how I EQ'd the harmonies. For my harmonies, this is my trick, my tip. For my harmonies, I always use this compressor here, roughly around 4 is my ratio for harmonies. And background vocals, I always, well, I guess I didn't on this one. I freaking lied again. I'm sorry. But I usually go around 6 ratio. Yeah, it usually is. For this one, I guess I didn't do that, and let me see why. Probably because it's just this one vocal that, let's see what it's doing.
Take it so, I take it so, I take it.
Okay, I see why. So at my original around 6 ratio, it's just too in the front. It's too much in its pocket instead of a blend. So since now it's like too much of a pocket, it's like, let's just bring down the ratio and make it blend more. So that's why now it blends more with that lead.
Take it so, I take it so, I take it so.
So that's why I went with the 2 ratio, roughly around 2 ratio versus the 6 ratio. But usually I want my backgrounds to be in the pocket, and I go into 6. They touch all the same things. This one, harmonies, went straight into the H delay. I slammed that bad boy all the way up, and my H delay is down here. I'm not doing anything fancy. It's just a regular ping pong effect. And I'm doing this for the EQ, so it's more whispery versus it being a actual delay. Or an actual, repeat or delay, whatever you want to call it. I went with that instead. Let's see. what did I do here? So that's for those vocals. For here, I melodined one note. Here's that note. And when you melodyne, this is something people don't realize is you don't need things to be perfect or right on there. It just got to sound good. This is at bar 38, so roughly around here. It's probably going to be this one. And let me just solo that vocal so you can hear that, that melodyne. I'll play it with it on and then I'll bypass it.
Got it running all the time. Got it running all the time. Got it running all.
So as you can hear when he says running, it does a weird roll, like the tune kind of rolled funny or something. So I just added melodyne to smooth that out. And like I said, I didn't want it perfect though. I just wanted it to sound right in context. So we can just do this.
Got it running all the time.
And right there when they're both playing, you can actually hear that it's kind of clashing without the melodyne right now. It's like something pokes out weird and funny.
Got it running all the time. Got it running all the time. Got it running all the time. Got it running all the time.
And then with that little note fix right there on the melodyne, it's really just a chop I did. It really fixed that, so it just sat right. And that's how I usually use melodyne. I just kind of make it sound as natural as possible. I don't have the greatest ear in the world for pitch correction and tuning, but I can get the job done, you know, just to make it work and sound good in context. So here we go again. I'm going to play this section a little further back.
Your head game's on my mind. Got it running all the time. Baby, lose my cool. No, I got it something good. How you so fly? And yes, I'm down to earth, babe. I'm sure I know your words. Just give me time. Yeah, you got me. Yeah, acting up when.
And now that reminds me when he did that "You Got Me" background vocal, that's another reason why I did what I did, was because this "you" was by itself, this "got" was by itself. That's why I brought it too. I didn't want it so tight in a box. I needed it closer to the lead vocal without it sounding like the lead vocal. So you still know it's a background vocal, a background singer, but it works. Here's this blend here. And then you can see here for my automation, my one trigger is keeping the H delay off until the song actually kicks in, because it sounded super weird as the intro. So we just kind of just added it back in later, and it sounded good from there. And I think that's pretty much it for this record. There wasn't anything else super fancy I did. It was just kind of the drums. I think that's really more what everybody liked, was the drums and the percussion. And I didn't do a lot of crazy tricks. It was just my trick with my settings here, which really helped out that width of the drums, and then the Aphex for the percussion. But overall, it was just a simple record. Mix it like that, and then I just mastered it in the same session here. And I want to show you this though, this magic guy. I'm gonna play it real quick. I'm gonna bypass it in the middle of it so you can hear that color it added.
I'm sure I know your words. Just give me time. Yeah, you got me. Yeah, acting up when you get down. Make it hurt all over town that I got mine. Yeah, head game's on my mind. Got it running all the time.
And at that second where I brought it back in, you can hear what it's doing. It's like, okay, it made everything to life. It brought things to life. It wasn't just a basic, oh, let's just add it on there because we can. Now it really brought things to life. And I didn't do anything except add the little drive at 1. I'm going to play this little section again so you can hear it.
Lose my cool, no, I got it, something good. Lose my cool, no, I got it, something good. Lose my cool, no, I got it, something good. Lose my cool, no, I got it, something good.
Super dope plugin. Super dope. They're only like $29 or something whenever Waves does their sale. This mic one is super dope. The Spike is awesome, which is the SSL emulation. The Nevo's the Neve. I think this is the what's the mic one? Man, I forgot which one's the mic emulation, but it sounds great. If someone knows, go ahead and just drop a comment. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And then, like I said, for the master, I just went to -9, made it sound great, and we were off to posting this online. Oh, for the lead here, for this guitar solo, I should mention is whenever they do a guitar solo, it's replacing the lead vocal, so you want it to be the same volume as the lead vocal, or close to the same volume. It can be a little louder, it can be a little lower, but it's usually replacing that lead vocal, so you want to make sure it's at a good volume.
All the time, baby, lose my cool, no, I got it, something good.
And for something like this is just another tip, is when they send you a guitar solo like that, a lot of times they fell in love with that sound, especially when they know they're throwing in a guitar solo. It's like, hey, I'm throwing in a guitar solo, let's find the perfect sound for it. And they're dialing for a while through their plugins, their amp, their pedals to find a sound. So a lot of times you just don't want to jack it all up. So that's why you can see my EQs are all zeros. Even my compression's not even doing anything. Pretty much everything's at zeros. And all I did was lower it here at the end because it was a little too loud at the very end. Actually, I lowered it and I was like, I need a little more of it back. So I just kind of raised it here. I don't know why I did it that way. I just did. It doesn't make sense, right, to raise it and then lower it after, but it just worked in this scenario, so that's what I did. Let's see. Oh, I didn't even explain the synths and the pads, but this is the pad.
HeadGame's on my mind, got it running all the time. Baby, lose my cool, no, I got it, something good. Your HeadGame's on my mind, HeadGame's on my mind.
And what I did there is just left it dirty, left it clean, or not clean, but left it dirty, left it kind of blended in with all the other instruments going on. The blend of all the instruments were really well done to my ears, and it was just kind of making certain elements shine through, which was the percussion, because I felt that needed it. The Rhodes, which I showed you the Rhodes, how it sounds before and after when I added that EQ here. Super amazing EQ. It's my favorite EQ that's ever come out. This is the plugin I highly recommend everybody to buy if you don't own it yet. The SSL 4000E by Plugin Alliance. Brainworks. It's incredible. It's incredible. That's the go-to EQ for everything, and that's why I have it the way I have it in my template. Because yeah, everything just sounded great, and I just kind of went through it that way. And that was it. I'm done with the record. Let's see, anything else? Nope. But all right, I hope this helped anybody. I hope you guys learned something. Really just to make things sound good, or just even a couple tricks on making the drums wider, or the piano super dope, or Rhodes if you're gonna mix a Rhodes. So, as always, everybody keep creating music. Drop me a comment below. Shoot me an email if you need some help or if you have any questions. I try to get back to everybody as best as I can, and yeah, I'll try to comment to everybody. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes I get busy. Sometimes I'm mixing records. Sometimes I'm even just playing some games. I've been lately really into Destiny 2 and Brawlhalla. If you play Brawlhalla, shoot me an invite. Super love that game. Free game, fighting game. Yes, you gotta be really skilled at it. But anyways, yeah, let me know. But all right, as always, take care and keep creating music. Peace.
Headgame's on my mind, gotta run it all the time. Maybe lose my cool, now I got it something good. Headgame's on my mind, gotta run it all the time. Maybe lose my cool, now I got it something good. You got me, yeah, and the up when you get down, yeah. Make it hurt all over town that I got mine, yeah. Take it slow, I can savor all the taste. Not a second goes to waste, 'cause I won't let you forget that your headgame's on my mind. Gotta run it all the time. Baby, lose my cool, no, I got it something good. Your headgame's on my mind. Gotta run it all the time. Baby, lose my cool, no, I got it something good. How you so fly, and yes, I'm down to earth, babe. I'm sure I know you would just give me time. Yeah, you got me, yeah. Acting up when you get down. Make it hurt all over town that I got mine. Yeah, headgame's on my mind. Gotta run it all the time. Maybe lose my cool, no, I got it something good. Your headgame's on my mind. Gotta run it all the time. Maybe lose my cool, no, I got it something